Hello, my name is Gabriel Chappell, and I'm presenting on Hapa Culture, specifically Japanese Canadian culture for interpersonal communication. What is Hapa? What does the word mean? The etymology of Hapa is a Hawaiian term that means half or mixed, originally someone who was born partially Asian and Pacific Islander, and someone from another race not from the island. For example, someone who is Hapa Haole, Haole meaning white or Caucasian. In Japanese, the term Hapa is derived from the word meaning leaf or leaves, like in the word Hapazomi, which is the art of leaf dyeing. In our textbook Reflect and Relate, Kimberly Crenshaw coined the term intersectionality, where issues can arise from someone's race, social and political identity, their gender, sex or sexuality, their age, etc. Hapa issues fall in that Venn diagram of overlapping issues as the identity deals with cultural, colonial, and ideas of race and identity. From an article that was recommended to me during my interview with Jeff Chiba Stearns, he mentioned that there are four phases to biracial or Hapa identity. They are questioning confusion, refusal suppression, infusion exploration, and resolution acceptance. He told me that it's not a linear phase, and people can go between phases while wrangling with their mixed race identity. Who gets to use the word Hapa? There's been discourse online that only native Hawaiians can use the term, since the word seemed to be appropriate to take on a broader definition of people who are mixed, of any Asian or Pacific Islander descent. The NPR Code Switch article is interesting, and the article narrator wrangles with the term, concluding that she's hesitant to use it, but knows of no other alternative at the moment that fulfilled the same meaning. The article from Rice Paper Magazine, an Asian culture magazine published in Canada, this author prefers not to be called Hapa at all, equating it to the term mulatto. Some people can have any number of words used derogatorily towards them, such as banana. Some embrace that term and imagery, while others reject being called that. It's personal preference, and Jeff and I agreed that self-identifying is key to respecting each individual. However, for those who do identify with the term Hapa, there have been interesting art and community formed around the term. For example, Kip Fulbeck's photography with the Hapa Project, where he would photograph numerous individuals who were Hapa and photograph them again as the years went on, asking them how they identify. It's interesting that if you ask 1,000 different people what Hapa means, you'll get 1,000 unique and different answers. For Japanese Canadian Hapas, history affects their present numbers. During the 1940s and World War II, after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, Japanese Canadian citizens were seen as enemies or spies of the country. They had their assets seized and were sent to internment camps. The first generation of Japanese Canadians were hesitant to intermarry with the Caucasian and Europeans of Canada, but as time progressed, they realized that in order for their culture to survive, they need to adapt and assimilate. Japanese Canadians intermarried from the 70s to the 90s, having their numbers multiply and ultimately having each generation wrangle with which dominant culture they identify mainly with. Most saw themselves as Canadians first, but when asked the question, they were seen as visible minorities by the state. As a child, Jeff didn't see himself reflected in pop culture, and being in a small town Kelowna, his peers were mostly white. In elementary history, he learned about the Métis and Mestizo people and felt a bit of connection to their mixed race culture. It wasn't until the 90s that he heard of the word Hapa and it felt like a right fit for him. Some interesting real life culture actions of being Hapa Japanese Canadian. During the animation What Are You Anyways, Jeff described how he enjoys putting soy sauce, or shoyu, on his pierogies and sauerkraut on his rice. When asking the question about the six dimensions of culture, we agreed that Japanese Canadians can be flexible or a mix of some of the dimensions. For example, Japanese Canadians are collectivistic and partly individualistic due to both sides of being Asian and Western. Again, with being a blend, Japanese Canadians have a high and low context culture, and Jeff mentioned this in the way he talks and interacts with students of varying ages. I think we both agreed that Japanese Canadians can be P time oriented, as the interview call time was flexible in its start and end time. Japanese Canadians have a low power distance culture, where there is no hierarchy and people's power is fairly even and equal. Using the map on Hofstede's site, we notice that Canada has a mid-uncertainty avoidance, whereas Japan is very high uncertainty avoidant. Canada has a somewhat feminine culture, and when Jeff talked about emotions and empathy, it made me think that Japanese Canadian Hapas are more matriarchal or femininely inclined than the masculine Japanese culture, or even the balanced United States, which is arguable. Some may say the US is more masculine and patriarchal, like Japan. Emotion displays of Hapa range the entire gambit of emotion, and Kip Fulbeck's photography highlights the joy of acceptance, the uncertainty and confusion of not knowing, and every emotion in between. One question I asked Jeff was how can people respect Hapa culture? And he mentioned being respectful and tactful, not asking if someone's exotic or oriental, and respecting how each person self identifies. Some people in his family in particular identify with the terms Wasian or Blasian, whereas others see those terms falling out of fashion. Jeff mentioned that he helped co-create and coordinate a festival in Vancouver called Hapa Palooza. Unfortunately, since the COVID-19 pandemic and recent online discourse, they have been thinking about renaming the event, but still hosting and putting a festival on in the future that celebrates mixed race identities. This is the artist Jeff Chipa Stearns. He has 4 books and one on the way, and he has animated different shows for public broadcast and commercials. His 2 documentaries, One Big Hapa Family and Mixed Match, were used in writing this project. One thing I wanted to leave you with was, if you can, see if you'd like to register to be a blood marrow donor. People of mixed race ancestry have difficulties finding a match due to their genetics. It's been described as finding a needle in a haystack. After watching the film Mixed Match, I felt moved and called to action to join the registry and have my tissue sampled to find a matching recipient. Thank you for your time today. I hope you enjoyed the project and learned a little bit about Hapa culture and also the work of Jeff Chiba Stearns. Thank you.